afternoon. Good to see everybody. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Homecoming week, exciting week, festivities and alumni, excitement on campus. Moving the parade back to campus will be unique. First time I've ever seen it on campus, so it'll be kind of fun to experience that. But looking forward to it. We had a really good and productive Bison week last week. And now, we started to turn our attention to South Dakota at that time, but now fully engaged in our game plan and preparation for South Dakota this coming Saturday. Really look forward to it. I know the more you watch them on film, the more impressed you are with them. I mean, defensively, they've only given up 6 points in the last 8 quarters. Have played really well. I think they got a tandem at running back, Travis Thies and Nate Thomas, that have really done a nice job. I think they probably ran for about 85% of their ground game. Then they got 2 receivers on the perimeter, Carter Bell and Jack Martins, that probably have easily over 70% of their catches. So have done a really nice job. The area that I think they've improved the most is up front on the offensive line. They continue to do a really good job there. I think you see that in their run game and in their protection. And then defensively, continue. The one thing you're going to get with a Bob Nielsen coach football team, they're going to play really hard, and you see that on defense. And I think they have some really special players at all 3 levels. Both their linebackers are returners. I think one of them was a first-team All-Conference kid a year ago in 2022. Their defensive tackle, Nick Gase, I think was National Player of the Year or of the week just a couple weeks ago. So plenty of guys that we need to make sure that we identify as difference makers. But looking forward to getting back on the field. We gave our guys 48 hours to get right mentally and physically, and now it's time to go. Next 8 weeks are going to go fast and be busy. I'll open it up for questions.
The bye week helps in getting ready for not just South Dakota, but for the rest of the conference slate?
I think it has a significant impact, especially when you start talking about maybe some of the younger players who are right there on the fence. Can they help us? Will they help us in more than 4 games? Can they help us in down the stretch as a backup on special teams? Continuing just to learn kind of our system defensively and offensively and special teams. So I think there was a ton of value. And then the things that maybe we struggled with in the first 3 weeks. Were there different looks defensively that people were giving us that we struggled with? Were there things defensively that we've struggled to defend? We can go back and try to correct some issues and anticipate what we're going to see next.
How you said how well they've done in holding opponents down and how well the offense was able to do, especially in that first half 2 weeks ago against Central Arkansas with those 35 points. So what can you use to help the offense keep going and continue their good stretch against a tough defensive team like the Coyotes?
Well, I think the thing that you've seen in the first 3 weeks is offensively we've been able to start fast. We've made that kind of a premium. That's an emphasis, and we need to continue to do that. Not necessarily today, but I think as the week unfolds, I think we'll try to do some things where we get cranked up early in practice, try to emulate what it looks like on game day to get going, both offensively and defensively, in maybe a team takeoff that might be the second or third period of the game of the practice format. But trying to make practice more competitive and make it more uncomfortable for our players in game day, and hopefully then those things correlate to success.
Matt, how did you come out of the bye week health-wise, specifically on Nick?
I think we're doing okay. He was out of the boot pretty quick last week. Saw him running around, was doing some things at practice, was in his green jersey, taking mental reps, a little bit of walkthrough reps as well. So we'll see. He's had 2 days now. He's continued to rehab and get in for treatment. I know he told me he's going to be fine. So I'm gonna bet on our players.
How have you seen him elevate his game this year? Kubitz, that is, especially after Luke got hurt, it seemed like since the playoffs, Kubitz has just gone upwards in my estimation.
I think he has. I think, anytime you get to play and you become the guy at that position, that's bound to happen. And I think he's continued to do that. He can make plays from sideline to sideline. He's up to about probably 228, 226. He's carrying a few more pounds. That was something that we challenged him with, just because he needs to be durable and needs to be physical, especially going to be playing Mike linebacker for us. His football IQ continues to expand. He does an excellent job of being the communicator on the field. Our safeties and our Mike backer really have to be that that conduit between our coaching staff and the rest of the players. And it seems up to this point, he's done a really good job with that. We need to continue to improve, and we've done a lot of things during the Bison week, trying to emulate some loud environments because we know there's going to be some as we move forward, this Saturday in particular.
Progress after that Central Arkansas win, going to the bye week. So what were the focal points of the progress you were chasing then?
Ball security offensively, sustained blocks, being really good at our base stuff. I always challenge our coaches that we need to be able to go back, and if the things you put in the first 4 days of fall camp don't show up, then why are they being put in? Those need to be the things that you lean on, that you rely on, that you can always go back to. Defensively, we need to continue to tackle better, need to continue to create changes of possession, get off the field. Third down was an emphasis. We had a pressure period last week where defensively Coach Petrino threw everything at our offense, during a 16-play kind of mini segment that we had. We had a lot of noise last week with our offense as well as our defense, trying to emphasize we're going to eventually at some point go on the road and have to play in an environment that's not conducive to communication. Well, how can we be proactive and practice those things now versus waiting until the week of? And then just trying to shore up any fundamental and technique issues that we thought we had.
A role here?
Special teams wise, he's been one of our top players on special teams the last couple of weeks. You start looking at it and breaking it down as far as production. Has a number of tackles, continues to improve daily at that will linebacker position, and we need him to. It would be naive of us to go into the season thinking that we're only going to play 3 linebackers the entire year. We need him to be able to play fast and mentally free, and he's getting there.
So I entered the poll, and that gives you 2 ranked wins. Your comment on that, your thoughts?
I thought they both were really good football teams when we played them. Both of them have, you look at their rosters, a ton of depth. Central Arkansas and Eastern, scary, can threaten the field on the perimeter. They play extremely hard defensively, and it doesn't surprise me. I talked to Coach last week after the game. He was very complimentary, and I too of them. You guys are going to win a lot of games this year, and I see they had a big win already this weekend.
And saw that 70-yarder that Powell had. They're in kind of a spread offense.
Yep.
Is that something you think USD might try to do? Maybe?
Why won't you? I mean, that's you're. Sometimes being a smart coach means you just try to emulate what somebody else did. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like that. I mean, that's, a lot of people jump into that spread look and because they know it's a 4-1 box and they have numbers, in the box. And if we bring another backer in the box, they're going to throw it on the perimeter. And you got to pick and choose and try to disguise your defense the best you can.
Earliest recollection of seeing Aiden Bauman in high school?
We recruited him, and I think in the spring, probably leading up to his senior year, Coach Hedberg and I being there, watching him go through maybe a morning workout, go through, I believe at the time his dad was his head football coach who had a connection with Coach Hedberg from their St. Cloud days. And so, that was probably our first time that we had some, actual on-field evaluation of him. But he tremendous player. You could tell he's done a nice job. Picking up what they're doing offensively, and I know they're still kind of going through probably a little bit of a growing stage with having a new offensive coordinator this year.
Challenges that go with facing a left-handed quarterback?
Probably, if you think about it, probably some moving pocket things, but I know against Lamar, they threw that tendency right out the window when they did sprint out, to the defensive left, and that would have been against his arm. So, but just where they're going to move the pocket, where he might scramble, might be a little bit different than what you see 90% of the time with a right-hander.
This is a lefty every day?
Probably a little bit. Thank goodness we won't have to defend him on Saturday, but he is it does help having a lefty there.
You mentioned that they have a new offensive coordinator. They're doing some different things that they've done in the past.
They're huddling. So probably a little bit, complimentary football, getting involved, being solid on defense, trying to, create some longer drives offensively versus, last couple of years they had been primarily a tempo team. Still running inside zone, still, a little bit of outside zone or some split mid zone that we call it. and trying to utilize their backs. I think, as I said before, they have a stable full of backs, and they really like to have them both on the field at the same time so they can attack you on the perimeter. And I think that's something that is probably a little bit different than what we've seen from, years past South Dakota's.
Tackling raised its head against Central Arkansas specifically. You mentioned get better at
I didn't
tackling.
think it was good enough. Yep. So, but I'm probably going to say that every week that we need to continue to tackle. That's, we're chasing progress. And so I thought we missed some tackles, and I thought we had some opportunities to have some TFLs that we just missed. So we got to be better in that area. That's a fundamental and a technique that is probably not utilized enough. I mean, everyone is so worried about being injured, and I'm one of those too. And the fine line between how much do you tackle in practice, how do you emulate it so it feels like it's game speed.
Tackle more then? I mean, did you?
We did some stuff. Yeah, we were tackling situations and or try to set up some sort of circuit that would challenge our guys to emulate game-like situations.
Of Derek Paulo getting 200 and whatever yards. I mean,
Part of it, but just it wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter who the back was. Just I think that's something that during the bye week, I think most coaches would say that there needs to be an emphasis. It's a chance to re-emphasize the things that you have to be good at. And, if you're not a good tackling team, it struggle to get off the field at times.
Been one of the most efficient and accurate passers so far this season, and really any level of football. How do you think you've seen his sort of evolution and growth as a quarterback through these first 3 games?
Well, I think you have to look at his entire body of work. Cam's been playing a lot of football, and you go back to the spring of 2020. He was right out of high school, got thrown into a kind of a unique situation, and did a really good job, and won us some big games and made some big plays for us. But where you've seen it is just his command of the offense, his ability to communicate, his leadership skills that I think are at their best that they've ever been. When you talk about a guy who his words and actions got to match up, Cam Miller's done a really good job of that. And so I think he's playing confident. He has great connection and relationship with all of his skill players. And so there isn't one that he feels like he has to go to. He knows that whoever's on the other end of it's going to make the play for him.
Mark of a Bob Nielsen coach team. You know him so well. What does a Nielsen coach team look like?
I don't think they beat themselves. You got to go in there and you're gonna have to win. I don't think they don't turn the ball over. Very few penalties or penalties, intolerable penalties. They don't hurt themselves. They don't get behind the chains. Very efficient. Down in distance, staying ahead of the chains. I think defensively he just doesn't ask for you to play a lot of defense, but just what you do, you need to do it really well. And if you can do that and have great detail and discipline in how you approach it, you'll have a chance to be competitive in the fourth quarter.